Hello everyone, we will start out in a few minutes. Let's wait for more people to join in. Okay, let's get started, shall we? Yeah. Hello and welcome to Wacom Comic Week on this lovely afternoon, evening, morning, I don't know, depending where you are, what time of the day. I hope that's a good day. Thank you for joining us today on the third day of our online comics and creativity event brought to you by Wacom and Clip Studio Paint. Today we have a great session waiting for you with the exceptionally talented Nadia Axel with us. Before we jump into the session and the details, we have a couple of housekeeping rules, nothing too harsh, nothing too fancy, just a couple of small reminders. This session is going to last roughly 1 hour and we will have time for answering the questions you might have towards the end. With so many of you in the room, we probably won't be able to answer all the questions, but we promise we will do our best. Please use the Q&A function of Zoom for your questions to our presenter and about the presented content. For technical issues like screen share not functioning properly, or if you're having trouble with the audio, please use the chat box. We will keep an eye on both the chat box and the Q&A. And one more reminder, if you want your question to be addressed and seen, please use the Q&A box. We are all creatives and enthusiasts of comic and creative arts, so please be kind and do not spam the chat feed. This session is being recorded and it will be available on Wacom YouTube page next week. You will also receive an email next week with links, additional information, and some special offers from our sponsor, Clip Studio Paint, which is a survey link that if you fill in within the 2-week attendance period, you will have a chance to win one of the 100 Clip Studio Paint Pro 3-month license keys. If you are new to Zoom, please do check out the gallery view and speaker view options to find the best viewing experience for yourself. Click around freely, you cannot break anything, we hope. And you can also adjust the slider between screen share and the camera freeze to find the ideal settings for your viewing pleasure. Right, who we are, a brief summary. For those of you who don't know Wacom, we've been around for about 40 years and we are pioneers of digital pen input technology, which means every time you need to work or create on a computer and realize that the mouse or the trackpad is not going to do the job, you might want to switch to a Wacom tablet and grab that pen. And for the rest of you who know us, it's so nice to see you all here again. And this session is brought to you by Clip Studio Paint. Those of you who have been following our online sessions in the past few months are already very familiar with our growing partnership with them. And now I will let Joanna do the introduction. And Joanna, you're on mute.
Yes, I noticed. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here again and be a participant in this session, in this whole event. Just as last time. For those of you who don't know, Clip Studio Paint is versatile graphic software best suited for drawing and painting to create a wide range of content. With a wealth of unique features, it helps to create anything from illustration over comics to concept art and animation. No matter if you're professional or hobbyist, Clip Studio Paint's unique and natural drawing feel, along with its comic features, is loved by creatives around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last slide, which is the advertising slot, we have an amazing offer for all of you. By visiting our eStore page, estore.wacom.com/comicweek, you can discover the full range of our offers exclusive for those of you who attend the Comic Week sessions. A wide range of Wacom products, including the Wacom Cintiq Pros, Wacom Cintiqs, Intuos Pro, and Mobile Studio Pros are waiting for you with up to 20% discount. I think it's a good idea to take a screenshot of this page so that you can find it after the event is over. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. And in the meantime, just another reminder that we will have a follow-up email which will include the promotion link for Clip Studio Paint to win one of the 100 licenses. Finally, the time to start. So today we have Nadia Axel with us. She's a freelance artist and creative influencer from Denmark. She is self-taught in digital illustration and has a secret passion for video editing, and therefore she started her YouTube channel in 2015. She is not just an artist, but also an entertainer. And without further ado, and I know there has been a lot of ado, let's give it up to Nadia.
Thank you. I'll start by sharing my screen, if I can make this work. Will you stop other screen sharing? Yes. I want to share this screen. How is it looking? Did I break it?
No, perfect.
Good.
Right and crisp.
Good. Okay, thank you so much for the awesome introduction, guys. And thank you so much to Wacom and Clip Studio for having me here today. I'm super excited about it. I'm just going to start off by doing a little of an extended introduction. As I mentioned, I'm Nadia Axel. I live in Denmark, so if my accent is a bit Viking-ish, that's the reason. I'm self-taught artist, and I jumped into digital illustration back in 10 years ago, but it really took off like from 2016 or something like that. I work currently full-time with my own art and with my YouTube channel and a lot of other small things across the interwebs as an artist, and it's a blast. And today I'm doing this here with you guys, and this here on the screen is just some examples of some of the art I've done in a couple of years. And interestingly, some of the paintings in this canvas are like very painterly, and I used to do a lot of like pretty pictures. But at some point, guys, you get tired of just creating pretty pictures. At least I did. So I moved into something more expressive, and I'm going to show you that journey just really quick. So here's a screenshot from 2018 when I started to look into expressions with the style I have at the moment. And from 2019, you can see I keep experimenting with this expressive style, which has ultimately led to the style that I have today, which looks more like this, very expressive and really, really well suited for comics, which is what we are going to talk about today. Most specifically, animation in comics, because in 2016, I was in this fandom. You probably know this game called Undertale, and created loads of content for this game. And I started making little comics, and I thought it would be fun. Hey, why can't I just plaster on an animation here and there? Maybe make the character blink or something else just to make it more interesting. And it kind of took off a little bit. And I'm going to show you some examples of what I mean. I can bring this up. Okay, so here's some of the older work, okay? I hope this is showing all right. It's a GIF, otherwise please tell me. So here we have some small animations going on. There's like an eyebrow, and there's like the speech bubble or the balloon, I think people call it. Wait, now I touched the screen. And that's just one way that you can bring some more life into your comic panels to make them more interesting. Yeah, it just looks more fun when it's animated. I'm going to show you a few more examples before I get into why we're doing this. There's some more here. So in this example, for instance, we just have some blinking of the character, like the eyes moving around a bit. It's a very subtle little animation, but you can also take it further in your panels and add frame by frame animations like this one. It's just an idle animation that's repeating itself, which is one of the important aspects of these animated panels, is that the animation should be able to repeat itself. Because what we're not doing today is something called motion comics. Motion comics is more like when you take a complete comic story, you put it into some kind of editing software like After Effects, and then you put it together with music and sound effects, and you watch the comic kind of like an animatic as a movie. But what we're doing here is just taking comic panels and animate them so we can export them as GIFs or as video files for Instagram, but we'll get into the formatting a little later. I just wanted to show you some examples of small animations that work well in comic panels. So these were some of the older ones. This is one of the newer ones that I did in Clip Studio Paint. So it's also some frame by frame animation in her face, but And it's a little more elaborate than just blinking, I know, but sometimes it just gives that a little more edge. And the comic that we are going to work on today is one I created for some of my newest characters, Mocha and Damon. If you follow me anywhere, you know these guys. And this specifically, this page 2, is the one we're going to be working with. And I'm going to take you through the whole process of starting an animated comic. And this is the newest page right now. I'm moving back into Clip Studio Paint. So, excuse me, making an animated comic. First of all, step 0, you got to have the idea. I usually get my ideas when I listen to music or when I sketch my characters, and sometimes just scenarios pop up in my head. And from that idea, and you don't have to finish the idea, you just have to have a general thought about what you want to do. My next step would be scripting. So up here, you see there's number 1, step 1, scripting. And this is a screenshot of the script for the comic that I'm currently working on. You can see I have all the panels, I have all the panels written here. And after I've written all of the panels of the entire mini comic, I start dividing it into pages. So typically when I write the panels, I have some kind of idea about the setup of the panels or the emotions or how the characters are going to look. So when I start to divide them into pages, I take that into account. So sometimes it wouldn't work to have 4 panels in a page, and sometimes it would. So that's just something up to you and the images that you're going to present in your comic. Then after I've written the script and I have the story in place, I go over to this I call step number 2, which is formatting and planning ahead, like technically. So think about the format. Where do you want to upload it? Is it for Tumblr? Is it for your Patreon? Is it for Twitter, for Instagram, or your website? All of these things you got to take into account because, for instance, on Instagram, the max ratio you can upload is a 4:5 ratio. So I decided to make a 4:5 ratio because I really wanted this comic to go on Instagram, and it does also work on all other pages. So to make sure it was still printable, if I want to print it ever, I just take the A4 paper size and then shrink it down to a 4:5 ratio, which is this dimension here that I'm working in with these comics. You could make it a lot bigger if you want to. The exported images are far smaller in the end, but it's just nice so you can print it if you want to. Then I think about the file format. That's what, if you want it to be on the web, you choose a GIF for the final format. If you want it to for Instagram, or I think also for Twitter. I don't think you can upload GIFs on Twitter, I'm not sure. But MP4 or video format is then perfect for Instagram. And Clip Studio Paint can export to both formats, so you should be good. And the work file, you need to save your work as a Clip Studio file. I know you can also save stuff in PSD files in Clip Studio, but in order to actually use the timeline, which is the one that will control our animations, you need to save it as a Clip Studio file. Okay, so now we know what format and the end product, what it's going to be like. We have the script. Next phase is to start sketching. And down here, we have the page 2 of my script over here, just sketched out really loosely. And after I have sketched and imagine like the comic panels, I add these animation notes. And the animation notes are just the red text I have here, where I just to myself write, okay, maybe it's nice, maybe there could be an animation here. I want this guy to blink, or this guy, I want Damon to blink. And here I want Joe from accounting, I want him to blink and twitch, or maybe just twitch. I haven't decided at this point yet. This is just a sketch for me. And then I want like this little anger mark here on Mocha, and I also want that to be animated. And then I thought, because she is throwing coffee at this guy against the wall, it would be nice if there were like little drops of coffee floating down here against the wall, so it looks like stuff is actually happening instead of just being still. And for animation ideas, I made this little one here. This is just some of the most common animations in comic panels that I use. It's characters blinking, expressions that change, text, especially like effect text. balloons, effects. I already said effects, whatever. Particles, glow, frame by frame idols, like I showed you with Diabolosa before. By frame, I meant this one where you have like a whole animation going over a couple of frames. And by particles, it could be like this one, where you just have something folding in over the panel, like rain or something. But there are also, of course, some limitations here, because if we export this as a GIF, if you need both a GIF and a video or just a GIF, remember that there's a restriction to GIF formats, and that is that you can only use 256 colors. Now, luckily, our software today is a lot better at predicting what colors to keep and what to throw away. So before you, I mean, today you can actually create gradients and export them in GIFs and they look good, but sometimes bringing too many colors in a GIF, you know the result. It's not good. So keep the colors relatively simple for your, if you're exporting as a GIF in the end. So we're still working with page 2 here. Next step from here would be, I opened the file of the sketch in the full size that I have here. That's the draft that you saw on the other page. Then I use the panel tool over here to create panels for the comic. Now I already did this, so I'm not going to do it. And then inside each panel, I make a more refined sketch, because you get, you can produce really crisp, nice line art faster if you have a more refined sketch to go from, so you don't have to do a lot of interpretation. I mean, some artists work really well with messy sketches and line art directly on top, but I like to have like a sketch that's almost as clean as line art before I start to do the clean line art. And the clean line art then comes on top next time. Oh, wait, I forgot to show you. For my sketches, I like to use this one called Darker Pencil. It looks like this. And for the line art, I like to just use the G pen. And I also have a stabilization on G pen when I use it. Typically, if my brush size is like 15, I like to have around 12 on stabilization. It depends a little bit, but these numbers are often very close when I work with stabilization. And you can even further get more control over your stabilization if you adjust it by speed. So it's easier to get nice lines when you draw really slow. Just a little tip. And once the line art is done, of course, we move on and smack on some colors. And I'm going to show you how that looks in my layers, just so you know how I've been structuring it. And this is before I start thinking about the animations. Whoa, did something there with my hand. Okay, so if you look out here to the right now, here are my panels. These are my comic panels that I created with the comic panel tool. That means everything I draw inside this panel stays within this panel. So if I make a new layer, decide to draw, it stays within that panel. Super nice. I don't have to think about that. So where are we? There we are. So this frame of Damon, for instance, I have the line art for him here. I have the color for him here. Then I have the wall color, which is basically the background. Whoa, here. And underneath all of that, I have the sketch that you saw in the previous tab. There we go. So that's how I build up and structure my panels. And up here on the second panel, where I have a lot more going on, I have this folder for the sketches. I have one for the background with all of these little drops that I'm going to show you. I have the coffee spatter on the wall. And I have just the background, or the line art for the background here. Then I have a folder for each character containing line art, colors, and in this case also a filter for Mocha, because I needed her to appear a little darker so the two characters doesn't melt together. And then I have these little anchor thingies I talked about. I actually want to take this one here and duck it over here so you can see this. Like that. Where are we here? There. Oh, no, this one. So these are the little anchor things that I drew on over here in my animation notes. So I included them, two of them, because I wanted them to like kind of appear and move. in the final outcome. And then when I have done all of this and colored the characters and thought about all the animating elements, in this case, I have a lot of these drops you can see here. I'm just going to use my free transform tool to show you. It's down here. So it's just like a drop like this that we're going to animate. So it like slides down on the wall like this. So each element you want to be animated should be on its separate layer, because that's how it's handled in the animation timeline. You can also animate folders, but in this case, it wouldn't make sense that all the droplets had the same motion. They're going to fall down independently of each other of the wall, so they all have each their individual layer. And I just merged their line art with their fill color for these droplets. Where did that droplet go? Never mind. So now I've done this. So far, so good. This page is basically, except for the balloons, ready to be exported as a still image. Then I make a duplicate of this file. Okay. I make a duplicate of this file, and I call it page 2 animation optimized. I just realized that I might sometimes get scaringly close to this stop share panel. So if I stop sharing my screen, please tell me, because my hand is sort of all over the place. Okay, so this step, this is the file where we're going to animate in. And to animate, we're going to bring up the timeline. The timeline, you find it under Window and Timeline. Not animation cells, that's a different kind of, a different technique to animate, but just the timeline. This is going to be simple for us. See, it's not so much room. I hope you can see it properly. So in this version, I also put in the balloon. It should be on this panel here. Yeah, I just call it bubble because that's what we call it in Danish, bubbles. And I just use the, what do they call, like the template balloons out here to the right, and dragged it in and put some text in and customized it. So according to our animation plan, Damon should blink. It's this one. Damon should blink. Joe should be twitching, and the anchor thingies are going to move, and there should be dripping coffee. That's different kinds of animations. Some of them are going to kind of like appear and reappear. Like the blink is just a layer of Damon's eyes that's going to appear for a moment and then disappear again. Let me show you where it is. Here, I have this little layer out here to the right. You'll notice that it has this lock that I can't interact with it. And that's because I have put keyframes on it on my timeline. We're going in the next step to do a lot of animating with keyframes manually. So I won't just be going over this, we'll actually be doing it. But right now, I just want to give you a general idea of how it's going to look like. So we have a Damon blink here. If I use my free transform tool, you can see, oh wait, it's because I need to go to the right frame. There we go. Oh yeah, I can't use the free transform tool because it's locked. But here you can see his eyes. It's actually just a layer on top with his eyes closed. Not the entire character, just the area I want to animate. And then if I go down here to this panel, you can see here, it's called panel 4, like this one out here, and go to blink and click the little plus icon. You can see I have a bunch of keyframes here. So when I move this slide over, his eyes are open. Now they're closed. That's because this layer has been set to opacity 100. And when we move further, I've just set the layer's opacity to 0, which the timeline is recording. That's why it gives this effect. Yeah, so far so good. So basically, I need to see if no, that's the same file I should be in. Yes, it is. Okay, so imagine we come into this and we don't have any animations. You would actually get just like an empty timeline. Then you can say new timeline, and we just call it timeline 2. And here are some settings. If you're in Clip Studio Paint Pro, you are limited to 24 frames. But you can set the frame rate down so that you have more frames to work in, because the animation will be going slower. If you set the frame rate to 24 frames per second, you would have 1 second of really fast animation. So in this case, especially if you're on Clip Studio Paint Pro, choose the lowest setting, which is 8, and just keep the other, like playback time 24, scene number. Yeah, you can call these whatever you want actually, and give the timeline a name if you'd like. If you're on Clip Studio Paint X, there are no limits to number of frames. So that gives you a little more wiggle space to put out big monstrous, what is that word I'm looking for? Big animations. So I'm hitting OK. And what the timeline then does for you, this is not the same timeline. You can see up here, this is timeline 1 that we were on before. This is the new timeline we created. It automatically puts all of your layers out here into the timeline, so you don't even have to add them yourself. It's so smart. So what we're going to do is that we are going to animate Damon and the coffee drops, because there are 2 different kinds of animations. We're going to use 2 different kinds of keyframes, which I'll also show you in 1 second. Because Damon's animation, as I showed you, where you had like keyframes for his eyes being open, so that the closed eyes layer with a 0 opacity at 0 when his eyes were open, and when he was going to close his eyes, you would set this layer to 100, right? So right now I'm just going to put it to 0. And the way we control that is by using this thing called keyframes. And if you have any experience in video editing or animation, keyframes shouldn't be too of a strange concept to you. Basically, it means a point in time where something happens or some kind of transformation is recorded. For instance, the placement of something on the canvas could be on a keyframe. The way you enable keyframes is that you select the layer out here. In this case, it's the blink layer. You go up here to this one and you say enable keyframes on this layer. Boop. Did I turn it off now? Maybe I did. Yeah, I did. So it should be highlighted in blue. Then you have enabled keyframes for this layer. If you want to see more keyframe possibilities, click this little plus here, and you can see there is some opacity here as well, which has been recorded. I'll just delete that for now so we can do it all over. So this is what it's going to look like when you have no animations at all. And we have now enabled keyframes on this layer. And to add a keyframe, click this little arrow here, and you can see you can actually select 3 different kinds of keyframes. There is one called hold interpolation, there's linear interpolation, and there's smooth interpolation. And I have made this little example here to show you the difference. First ball here is animated using the hold interpolation, which means it jumps directly from this state to this state with no tweening or smoothing or anything in between, and then back to this stage. For the linear transformation, which are the green keyframes, which is the ball in the middle, you will have a smooth, somewhat smooth travel of the ball down to the next keyframe, which is here, and then smooth up to the next. And I'm actually lying a bit when I say smooth, because there's actually one called smooth, but linear just means it moves from A to B to A with the same velocity and speed all the time. So it's linear. And then the last one called smooth, which is one we're going to use for the coffee droplets, is if you look at I'm just going to play it now. If you look at the animation on smooth, it kind of accelerates a little bit before it takes on its full velocity, and then accelerates out again. It's also what we refer to as easing in animations. It just has a really nice look. Sometimes you might want to use linear instead of smooth. It really depends on the individual animation you're doing. I'm only using the hold interpolation and the smooth interpolation in my comics, right now at least. And to figure out which one you want to use, just think, is this keyframe, or is this graphic that's going to be animated, is it going to be like changing from one state to another without any smoothing in between? Or is it going to like have like a travel distance, or like yeah, you know, like the tweening in between? So if you want some tweening in between, you create this one called a smooth interpolation or the linear. But for the blink, we're going to use the hold interpolation. So we're just going to click on that and then click this little keyframe. If you're going to move it, where are we? Oh yeah, it's because it's on 0 opacity, I can't see it. But as soon as you actually, I just control set it, undid the keyframe, because we don't actually have to put it in manually. As long as this one is enabled, you can just do things out here in the time in the layers, and you can see it records the keyframe automatically for you. So when we move in here, I still want his eyes to be open. So I still want this one to be 0. I just moved it out and in to trigger it to create a keyframe. But you could also just create it manually by clicking this one. Then on the next frame, I actually want them the opacity to be 100, so his eyes are closed. But on the next keyframe again, I want to change it back. Let's see what happens if we move this keyframe. Whoops. So you can just drag your keyframes to like alter the timing of them. If I preview this now, this blink is a little slow, I think. So I'm just going to pause it. I'm going to put this keyframe back there. You can also select all of them and drag them and change the timing. I'm going to play again. And that looks a lot more like something I like for my comic. So that's one animation down using the hold interpolation keyframe. I'm sorry if this is getting too technical. I like it when it gets technical, so I'm sorry. I hope I'm explaining it well enough. Otherwise, just remember what this one did with the different kinds of keyframes that you can use. Yep. So let's look at those coffee droplets, because that's a smooth interpolation. So this panel is basically done and animated. Now I'll find my coffee stuff down here on, where is it? Wait, I can actually just show you this. This is how I planned out the pages. Keyframes. I have this layer here, green. So you can see for blinking, I'm using the hold interpolation. For the movement of this bubble or the balloon, I'm also using the hold, as well as for these anchor marks. And then down here, smooth. I seem to have undone the H. Smooth interpolation of the coffee drops running down the wall. It's supposed to say smooth. Smooth. Okay. So I'll find those, and as you can probably recall, they are located in panel 3 on the background, and we have 6 little droplets. Okay, so background, and there they are, my droplets. And you can, oops, if you don't have so much space like me, you can just use this to scroll down. Okay, so for drop 1, let's see where it is located inside our canvas. I'll just take the move tool. There it is, like right there. Just going to zoom in on it. Just going to lower this a little bit so you can probably better see. Here we go. So the keyframe was enabled from the last timeline, but you should just enable it. And when I'm going to set this to smooth interpolation, yes. And then I have this one highlighted, and I set the first keyframe because this is our starting point. Maybe actually our starting point should be further up. As long as I'm still on the same frame, I can just freely move stuff around like this. Yep. Okay, so it's hidden up here now. And by the end, all the way on frame 24, I'm just going to take it down, and I'm going to have it disappearing behind Joe's leg here. Nice and smooth. So you can preview it by dragging this and see if it falls out. It does seem like it looks Yeah, it looks fine. It does. So sometimes maybe it would have been falling out like this, but then you can just in here correct it and the keyframe will automatically be created for you. I'm just going to undo that because there was no need. But it looks a bit weird up here in the beginning. You can see it kind of like flows in over the other coffee. So I'm actually going to expand this one, and I'm also going to play a bit with the opacity. And again, you don't need to insert a keyframe. You just have to make sure that you are recording on that frame you want to start on. And I want it to be 0 opacity in the beginning. And then when it moves a little further down, I want it to be 100% opacity. So let's preview our animation. Yeah, that's some coffee. I want to just push this opacity a little bit. I'm eating my hair. Excuse me. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So we only have to do that 5 times more. I'm going to collapse this one, find the second drop. I wonder where I placed it. It's this one down here. I'm just using the move tool, whoops, to kind of fast figure out where it is. So I placed it in the middle of the line, but it's actually going to start further up here, right? So we already have keyframes enabled. I should disable it and re-enable it just in case I made anything with those movements I just did. And on the first frame, indicated by the red line, I'm moving it up here. And on this last frame, I wanted to go down here. So let's play that back real slow and manually. Like there, you can see it kind of falls off. You can just adjust it here in the middle. You can see it created a keyframe for you. Yeah, that looks a lot better. So now it's adjusting itself. Can go a little in. I'm just being picky now, but. And down here by the end, I also wanted to disappear with some opacity. So let's preview that. Yay, coffee dripping down from the wall. Who's gonna clean that? So that's how I would do. I'm not sure if I should do all of the others. Maybe actually I want to move on to something that's a little more exciting, but that's basically how you use the 2 different kinds of keyframes. You got the hold interpolation for things that disappear and reappear, like these anger marks too. I can just quickly do them. Okay then. They were located under Mocha. Anger thingies, because I have no idea what they're called. And I'm going to use hold interpolation. And I'm just going to set a keyframe for the starting point. And then I want to move it down here. No, wait, I need to move this one out. Move to frame 5 out here, to frame 9 back there, and to frame 13 down here, 17 up here, and 21 down here. So let's see our little animation. Yeah. And then we can do very quickly the same with this one. Create a starting keyframe, move to the next frame, or the next frame you want to animate in. Obviously, the closer these frames are, the faster the animation is going to be. So here I want this one to move up, this one to move down, up, down, up, and preview. Yeah, she mad. Again, this was done with the hold interpolation, shifting graphics. Just going to save that. I'm very close at hitting the stop share screen. Can you? Thank you. So this is just a comic panel with a lot of balloons. And what's with these? I like to animate my balloons, and I do that by having two balloons for each balloon. For each balloon, there are 2 balloons. So the red one here, for instance, where Malka is really angry that he tried to use decaf coffee for her. We're on which panel? We're in bubble panel right here. I'm going to open that. You can see the text is separate. It doesn't have to be. It just happened to be so. What I have is I used this little tool called Correct Line on the bubble to correct all of the little points on it so that you can see there are actually two. And they're, sorry, that was Danish. They have the same precision in the drawing, so, but you can see like the other one behind, and that's because I have used this. Whoa. Whoops. I'm pushing all buttons right now. I think it's locked because it's on the timeline, but you get like these anchor points that you can control, and you can just slightly alter the bubble to get some like this wiggliness here. So there, it's just the same bubble that I've altered a bit, but now I messed up with some opacity to show you guys. The thing is, there's a lot of animation going on in this page because there are a lot of bubbles or balloons. So I didn't want to do any major animations with the expressions here, because I'm also afraid that there can be too many animations because it's just a still picture with animations in it. Like when you watch animated shows, the animations are there to guide you to into where you have to look at the flow of the whole scene. But here you're just looking at the same image and you're using your eyes to guide around. You decide where you look in the picture. So it can be overwhelming if there are too many animations on one page, because the page doesn't disappear until you scroll past it. So in this case, I only have some animations on the balloons, but also some sweat drops on Joe over here because they were so subtle. And of course, the little angry thingy. So the last thing I have is this page that I'm currently working on. Just going to remove the timeline because we're not using it right now. And over here, I'm just going back over to my animation notes here. I have this page. And according to my notes, there should be some shakiness on the bubble. There should maybe be some sweat coming off of Joe, and Mocha's mouth should be moving a bit, it seems. So here I've prepared the clean line art and the color of Mocha. And now I'm just going to pretend that I colored the entire page. So I'm going to do this, save duplicate, Clip Studio format. And I'm going to call this Animation Optimized. That was the second or third step I showed you before, where I color the entire page and then I make one that is more optimized for animation, because then I can take these two layers and I can merge selected layers. So now I just have a layer called characters. If we keep pretending that I actually colored poor Joe. And I can delete layers I don't need anymore, the sketch. And I'm going to lock these two so I don't mess up. So on this animation here, it says that Mocha's mouth should be animated. And that's also going to be with the hold interpolation keyframe. So it's kind of going from one stage to another. You can also make 3 or 4 stages if you want to make more like of a frame by frame animation of her like kind of growling. But I'm a simple guy. I like simple animation. So the way I will do this is I will lower the opacity of this layer. Wait, I need to pick up the color first. There we go. Just going to lower the opacity of it. So this is actually one of the 2 animations. So on top of it, I'm going to say mouth, anim maybe. And then I'm going to slightly draw a different mouth, but based on the same kind of shape. I'm sorry if you can hear the music in the background. I think my neighbors are partying hard right now. Like this, maybe. Oh, I don't have to redraw a lot of stuff that I can reuse for the previous. Then I also want to kind of shift the teeth a little bit in and down, just so it's not entirely the same. A little smaller here, maybe. And maybe here we can have like some gum showing. Like that. So that's a line art for our animation. And then between these two, that means underneath our new line art layer, I'll create a new layer for the color. I don't need to name it because I'll merge them together in a minute. I just need to turn this back on so I can pick the color. Whoops, like that. And then on this color there, underneath our mouth animation layer, I'll just fill in that part, whoops, that's going to cover up all of the lines underneath. Like this. I shouldn't be coloring with stabilization on, that's stupid. Like this. And then for the gum color, and I need to pick up the teeth color. Usually I have something else I can pick the colors of. It's like I forgot a line there. Just going to quickly do this so you can get the idea. I can actually also just, there, see, I can better see now. And there was some color on her stroke here. So I'm just going to alpha lock this layer so I can paint over the lines without ruining anything else. I think I'm going to do the same for the gum here. And I just kind of want to pick up, yeah, that line should be smaller here. Wait, it's alpha locked. There we go. And I'm just going to hit Control E to merge these two together. What did I call it before? Let's just call it teeth anime. It doesn't really matter. It's just so I can find it down in the animation panel. Okay, so let's pretend we did all of the other animating elements separately on their own layers. Now we're going to bring up the timeline. Actually, I'm going to remove this one. So wait, that's not what I wanted. But there we go. Timeline. There we go. Fresh new timeline. Nothing ever done here before. Create new timeline. Frame rate 8, playback 24. Let's just call it timeline 1. And you can see these down here red. That's just because I've locked them out here, so I can't mess with them. Here we got the teeth. We're going to enable keyframes for hold interpolation. And I am going to set the opacity down to 0 for the teeth. Then I'm going to move forward, maybe to 5. I'm going to change it back, 9. I've just memorized these frames to evenly distribute the frames over the 24 that you have. You just use 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, and 21. I think I forgot to bring it up there, didn't I? Like that. I hope that worked. Oh, wait, I messed up. So I messed up. I'm just marking them all, deleting them. Looking at my teeth animation should be 0. On 5, it should be 100. That looks more right. On 9, it should be 0. On 13, it should be 100. And on 17, it should be 0. And on 21, 100. Let's see if this works this time. Yeah, so I, I did draw it pretty quickly, so the lines doesn't exactly match up, and you could probably do something more interesting than just the face that I did. And you can, if you wanted to go even faster, I mean, gotta go fast, right? You can just, obviously you would need to put in the remainder of the keyframes. Whoops. But just by pushing them together, you can see, and then it stops because there are no more keyframes, and then continues. So that's how I go about creating animations in my comics. I just really quickly want to show you that I couldn't show you on the last page with the balloon here. You see now it isn't locked because I haven't included it on my timeline yet. So what I would do, I would take the balloon, right click, duplicate, I'll call it 2 or whatever you prefer. I would go to the bottom one and I'll lower the opacity so that I can see what I'm altering. Go to the second one we created, push this little guy here. And now you can see all of these little angle points that you can mess with. There are a lot of them here. I'm not even sure it's the same balloon from the first page, but you get my idea, right? You can just alter these as you wish. I'm just being very dramatic here so you can see the changes. And I'm going to open up that one. You can see, yeah, so that's how I would animate the balloons and then put them into the timeline, obviously. Remember to breathe. Okay, so, and the final outcome is going to look a little something like this. And page 2, with all the coffee dripping down. I keep touching this. I shouldn't keep touching this. And the balloon here is also floating a little bit. And on the last page I've done so far, we have all of these moving balloons here. So yeah, that's how you can add animations in your comic panels inside Clip Studio Paint. Last thing, of course, before I go to Q&A is export. So let's say this one is done. Yeah, let's just say this is a good animation. You go to export animation and you can choose between movie and the animated GIF. So we want to make an animated GIF. Page 4, animated. And it asks you how big you want it to be. I'd like to shrink it down to 800 pixels in width and 1000 in height. And it's going to export an entire animation from frame 1 to frame 24 at the frame rate that you set when you started the when you made a new timeline. Hit OK. It's going to tell you that if the file size is larger than the target size, you can change and export again. It's just because we exported a big file. And I should be able to find it in here in my Clip Studio Paint folder. Yeah, there it is. So that's my process. And now I think we can go to Q&A. Thanks for listening, by the way.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you just show the last page you did a little more, because Zoom's a little laggy when it comes to what it's showing in the actual Zoom window in the screen share. So just that people can see, yeah, like this panel, and just go over the keyframes really, really slowly.
Yeah, I will even extend the keyframes out so we can better see it. So like this.
Yeah, I think if you move it very slowly, it's easier to see.
Is this still enough?
I hope.
Otherwise, guys, go try it.
You exported it successfully as a GIF, right?
Yes.
Maybe you can show that instead. I think it's a bit hard to see right now. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll just export this one where it doesn't look so weird due to the weird animation I did. Export animation, animated GIF, page 4. Yes, and 800. Thinking for like 2 seconds, and
yeah, let's look at this. And it's just we can see your hand drawing on the tablet, and it's a bit faster than what is shown on the screen share.
Of course.
Yeah. So strangely, your mouse is the same speed as on the video.
That's weird. Technical stuff will always happen.
Yeah, but now I think everyone can see now how the mouth moves.
It's still this old file, I think. That's a bit weird. Maybe I didn't do it properly here. Yes, and yes. There we go. Oh yeah, I had these old instances. Maybe this is better. Yeah, that's the new one.
Okay, let's see. Okay. I think that's a lot better and easier to see now. Thank you so much for taking the extra step there.
Of course.
Let's just go through some very basic questions to begin with. What's your setup?
My setup currently.
Yes.
I have like a newly built computer from this summer with some new Ryzen core. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's super strong. So it's a big stationary computer. I have 2 screens up here, and then down here I have my Wacom Cintiq Pro 16, which has touch, which is super cool. So you can like zoom with pinching and move stuff around. And Clip Studio Paint is optimized for it, I realized, which is super cool. So that's my drawing setup at the moment.
Yeah. Because you're also a YouTuber, what kind of camera do you use?
Oh, I have a Logitech Brio. It's a 4K webcam. And this one here that I'm recording with is my phone. It's a OnePlus 6T. And then I have this Snowball blue microphone to record sound. And this thing is called a pop filter because I blow a lot of air into the microphone.
Very good, thank you. Okay, where do we start? There were so many questions. Yes. So you have a very unique character style that you came to. How do you usually go about creating characters for your comic or in general?
I'd rather say that the characters create the comics for me.
Okay.
Mocha, which is my newest obsession in regard to original characters, she was designed purely by coincidence. I just wanted to draw a demonish character, so I sat down and started to draw and thought, oh, she needs to hold something in her hand. Maybe it's a coffee. Hey, I love coffee. Maybe she loves coffee too. So she ended up becoming a caffeine addict. And then I thought, she works insurance, she needs an assistant, so that's how I created Damon, who is then her assistant. And then as I'm drawing just expression sheets like this, their story just start developing inside my head. And that's basically also how this comic came to be. It was just something playing in my head without me even noticing it, because of the expressions, because I think about how they will react. So they actually make all the stories for me, and the characters basically always by coincidence, some kind of coincidence.
What kind of, is it more an episodic comic or is it a long form comic with like a very drawn out story?
I think I want to tell these characters and their world story through all sorts of different mediums. Like I want to do motion comics and short comics. Like this one is only going to be, I think, 10 pages, I think. And then do some animatics maybe, and just everyday scenarios. So a different, a mix of all different kinds of stuff.
So your story is more based on the format?
Yeah, it is, I would say. And you always get like chunks or pieces of their lives, and not the entire story from A to B. It's more like pieces.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have a favorite place to upload your animated comics for people who would like to also upload animated comics in particular?
I think Instagram is pretty good for animated comics because you can upload them as video files. And when you export a video file from Clip Studio Paint, it gives you that same time amount. So it is good enough to look good, even though it's looping on Instagram. You just got to remember those ratios. Like the 4:5 ratio is the biggest size in image that you can use for Instagram. But if you believe that Tumblr isn't that, Tumblr is also a really good place for the GIF versions, but DeviantArt also supports it.
Okay, very good. So that's one of the questions that came up a lot. Let me check. You're a freelance artist at this point. Yeah. What does your work day look like?
There's a lot of coffee. Usually starts with a cup of coffee and ends with a cup of coffee. Yesterday, my workday ended 2:00 in the night. because I just was so inspired to keep drawing this comic. But usually I start out by just coming to my computer with my coffee, and I plan out, if it's Monday, I plan out the entire week, and I plan which videos I will do, if I'm going to script today, if I'm going to record today, or if I'm going to edit. And sometimes I get to draw comics the whole day, and other times I edit videos for 4 days in a row.
Oh my
So
God.
it's very dependent on the kind of work that's coming in.
Yeah.
So you never really know in my daily life what you wake up to. It depends on my inbox.
What kind of work do you get as a YouTube artist, as a comic artist? Like what are the types of requests you get?
I often get companies contacting me for wanting me to draw something for them for some sort of campaign they have. Maybe it's a program. Like I've also worked with you on Clip Studio Paint on my YouTube, where I did a commission. So that's an example of what I do. I've also previously made some artwork for Netflix that didn't want it to go on YouTube at all. So sometimes it's just regular art commissions too. But on YouTube, it's usually either reviews of stuff or some kind of commissioned art piece that usually I get to decide for myself, as long as within the frame of, for instance, their program or something like that.
Okay, so very, very different types of work.
Very, very different.
So one of the questions that your audience had was, how did starting and planning a webtoon affect your art process?
Oh, well, I actually have two stories right now. I have this one with Mocha and Damon, which is, as I said, more like you get glimpse every now and then. It's not really an A to B kind of story. It's more like a free place for me to experiment and express myself. And then I have an actual webtoon project that involves a lot of scripting and designing characters and figuring out the world. So it takes a lot more background work or back work, if you could say so. But it has definitely made me explore more expressive art styles over the couple of years I've been working on the script for my webtoon. Because I figured that the style I had at the point, the one I had here in the beginning, the very painterly one, it doesn't really fit with the webtoon format, because it requires so much work to render all of this in every frame. So that's why I developed these more simplistic characters. And also, if you look at, I actually want to open page 1 here. I have, there it is. I've simplified the background just to make it easier for me to produce faster. So that's what one of the changes in my workflow that I have done to adjust myself to creating comics.
So you're mostly working with flat colors and less shading?
In comics specifically, yes. Yeah. But in illustrations, I still like to experiment a lot with lighting and shading and textures.
How much do you use that kind of like lighting and shading for mood in your webcomics?
Oh, I think it's going to have a big impact when you don't do it in every panel. So here it's pretty flat, but at some point I want to make some more emotional comics, and I want to put in some more lighting effects and moody colors. So it's going to be really impactful when you reach those panels, because it's going to give you a completely different feel from the rest that you've been watching or reading.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. A question that's often asked is like the style, and you touched on it a little bit. What's your inspiration for your personal style, for the comic? They're all a bit different. How do you manage to keep them apart?
You mean like the illustration style?
Yeah,
and
the style, the characters, like the faces, and just in general.
You need to ask again.
Oh, sorry.
My brain just shut off.
So your comic characters and your like more illustrated characters, they
Yeah.
look quite different.
Yeah.
How do you prevent them from overlapping, like in style?
You kind of like make up a rule set for yourself when you draw. In these over here, I kind of make the rule, for instance, that her hair, it should never go outside of her head shape here. It should always just be like I don't add that extra little line that goes up here. It just follows from her head shape and down, which I don't do when I do big floaty hair like this. But it makes it more like consistency to have rules like that, like how you can draw shapes. So shape language can be one thing. Also the way that I, for instance, extend her horn with her head shape here when possible. That's also just another rule that when I draw this character, this is what I do. But on Diabolosa, for instance, it's different because she's a lot more detailed in general when I draw her.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's about establishing some rules for yourself and for your characters. And sometimes, for instance, if I took Mocha into a big illustrations, I might change up some things because I want the two styles to kind of merge together. But when I'm trying to keep it simple for the comic, I have to stick to the rules or I'm overworking myself again with too many details.
Okay.
And make reference sheets for your own characters and have them available because sometimes you might forget something without even noticing it.
Yeah. How often does it happen to you?
Oh, just yesterday I had to go back and draw the bracelet, Mocha's bracelet on all panels because I've forgotten.
Yeah, that's like, do you sometimes, like, as an artist, do you flip, you probably flip your canvas, right?
Let's do it. Oh, it wasn't so bad.
And then do you sometimes mix up like on which hand like the bracelet is supposed to be, and then you at some point you notice that you flipped the panel and forgot to put it on the right hand?
Yeah, and then I fully rendered it, and then I start asking myself, is it really worth it to unflip it? Can I just keep it flipped? Just permanently turn this drawing around so I don't have to redraw this. I also often draw on the wrong layer, as sometimes my brain just shuts off when I'm focused.
Yeah, and your characters have like so many little details, like on the ears and like the little spots on the face.
Yeah, when you draw it enough times, you just memorize where they are.
Yeah.
It just becomes part of your physical memory.
Do you have any tips for drawing expressions?
Exaggeration. Exaggeration is a really, really good idea. These expressions are made based on, see if I can quickly find it. Sheets such like this. So I kind of take sheets like this and then I translate it into my own style. So this tired face here is actually Mocha right here. So also take pictures of yourself or have a mirror by your table and then do expressions. And when you put them down on the paper, you can start by just drawing exactly what you see, but then at least in the next drawing, you should exaggerate the expressions. That gives you a more expressive look, like poor Joe here, who's getting the axe, hopefully not dying, but and like I know this is very extreme, but look at that neck. I mean, she's disgusted at something.
She seems like a very angry person.
She's angry when she doesn't get coffee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, who wouldn't be?
Yeah, exactly. Inspired by real life.
Yeah. So you're a comic artist and you're a YouTuber and a freelance artist. Where did you start, or more precisely, like where should people start who want to do either of those things? Let's not do it all at the same time. Like let's start somewhere.
I mean, if you're getting into comics, it's very natural for you to also start getting into character design, because you will need characters for your comic, unless of course you're just doing fan comics. So if you're not comfortable designing your own characters, maybe fan comics could be a good place to start. I did a lot of that when I was preteen. I drew a lot of Pokemon comics. They've already established a universe for you. You only have to focus on drawing. And then when you get more comfortable and you start also having your own story to tell, designing some characters and putting them into the panels instead could be the next step. But basically everything, it kind of comes together naturally, actually, when you start doing this. You can't create a comic without doing art, but you can do art without creating a comic, right? So there's a lot of things that goes into comic making specifically, for instance, that you're just going to touch upon very naturally.
Mm. And if you want to be a YouTuber, how did you start to just do YouTube?
I decided to one day upload a speed paint.
Mm-hmm.
I even uploaded it in 3 parts because I thought there was still a limit to 10 minutes to videos. There weren't. So it was unnecessary, but I did it. And I kept uploading just speed paints with music. And as I became more confident, I started to put a little voiceover on it or make small tutorials. And then eventually I did a face reveal. And I did a guide in 2017, I think, in the beginning of 17, that's called How Become a Digital Artist, I think. Mm-hmm. And that somehow just got the snowball to roll. It was a video that really got popular and trending. And as more people just started to flood in, I put more time into my YouTube channel, and it just evolved to where it is today. Very natural, actually. Yeah. But I discovered, because I always loved to edit videos and I always loved to make people laugh. And I do a lot of mistakes and I say a lot of stupid things. And if I could somehow use that with some video editing help to make some kind of room for entertainment with my art, all of that combined, that would be a really, really good place for me. And that's what my YouTube channel is. Basically me drawing and laughing at myself.
Yeah. So it just all came together for you by combining all the things you like.
Yeah, it did.
In your career.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Okay, let's finish off with a very simple question. What do you usually listen to when you work?
Oh, everything. Oh, I mean, I have a playlist of songs I've collected over the past 10, 15 years that all have some kind of emotional response in me that like just generates ideas in my head. But I listen to everything I can get my hands on. I listen to a lot of electro swing right now, but I also listen to metal, like Nightwish and Within Temptation, and I listen to Danish music. Basically everything that touches me, that starts to generate idea in my head and tells a story that I can relate to. I listen to that. And electro swing is just good background music.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
That was super entertaining and very helpful. And I think a lot of people would like a guide of how you animate. So
I think that's a good idea.
If you don't have one yet, maybe you should look into that. If you have one, let people know.
I don't, but I'll definitely put on my to-do list.
Okay.
I was actually considering doing it anyway, so this webinar is just a fantastic opportunity to get started.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thanks for everyone for showing up from your busy lives.
Well, thank you so much, Nadia, and thank you, Joanna. That was a really fun, interesting, high energy talk. It was super cool to watch you animate and also listen to you. Now, let me share my screen one last time and go through some of the final reminders. All right. Thank you all again for joining us today. Please check us and follow us on social media at Wacom and at Clip Studio Official. And while you're on it, obviously, you should follow Nadia on social media as well. She has accounts on Instagram, YouTube, and also you can support her on Patreon. Please do visit estore.wacom.com/comicweek to see the full range of offers exclusive for you Comic Week attendees. And another reminder that you will receive an email, and that email will consist the survey for the Clip Studio Paint survey, where you can win one of the 100 Clip Studio Paint Pro licenses. That email will be sent out this Friday, not after this session, but that you will receive that email Friday this week. So check out your inboxes on Friday morning. And actually, that's all from us for now, for today. And just a quick reminder of the next session coming up next. It's 8 p.m. in Europe time and 11 a.m. in Pacific Daylight Time, Portland, Oregon, USA time. We have another upcoming session with Alex Sinclair. It's about digital color and comics. So I hope to see you all in that session as well. And one last time, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye.